Editor's note, I wanted to point out that a certain part of the score in Obi Wan Episode 6, Part 6 is extremely reminiscent of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Theme song. Here's Obi Wan 6, Part 6. And here's the Yu-Gi-Oh! Theme song. That is all.
Hello and welcome back to the episode 3. Let's try that again. That was dumb.
Holy Jesus.
This is what my producer has to deal with like on a regular
How are you
basis.
you're getting like worse at the openings, you know?
I am. It's because you get too comfortable, you know? Like you gotta feel like you're nervous or there's like a spike on your ass. Hello and welcome to May the Review Be With You with Nick and Joe. I'm Joe.
I'm Nick.
And today we're talking about Obi Wan, Episode 6, Part 6, the finale of Obi Wan. The fight that we had been waiting for finally arrived. A bunch of different things, actually, that we had been waiting for. It just kind of finally all fell into place with this grand finale. A couple surprises along the way, and we'll get into those as we go. But Nick, before we dive into any particular scene here, just as a whole, how are you feeling after watching the finale to this?
I was extremely excited during most of it, and I wish they ended it differently. We can get to that later, but I'm sure you know why. Yeah, we can get into more. I don't want to say too much because I feel like it just gets us in this loop of like, you know, overall thoughts, and I feel like we should save those for the end.
No, for sure. Just to, I guess, put a label on it, I feel the exact opposite about the ending, and I'm sure you know why.
Yeah, well, of course. Yeah. I'm the only person on the planet who was not excited about that ending, but that's fine. I'm
fine.
also the only person on the planet who happens to be correct, but it is what it is.
Fairly arrogant of you. Only Siths deal in absolutes. But again, we'll dive more into that in a bit. So yeah, just kind of like with episode 5, this episode just kind of hits the ground running at full speed. Honestly, I know you've watched it multiple times, Nick. I've watched it now 3 times.
Nice.
I think it's the third longest episode in the series. It might be the second, but it does not feel that way in watching it. Honestly, the first like 20 minutes like blink by. But yeah, the opening scene of this episode of our finale to this, we're on Tatooine, and we see that Reva is on the hunt right away for Owen and whoever this mysterious boy is from her perspective. How'd you feel about that scene, for the record?
I mean, I'm glad they ripped the Band-Aid off and let us know she was still alive right away, and that we were gonna like basically get her going after them. The way that her character arc finished just makes me like feel like they should have absolutely like got rid of her in the last part. So I mean, we can get to that when we get there, but so I didn't have a problem with the opening. I thought it was nice to kind of get that question out of the way, and it's like, okay, she's going to Owen now. And then it was kind of cool to see Luke finally have a line, because it's been 6 episodes and we've seen him like 3 times. So he says, whatever he says about like they need a belt or whatever. And well, I think there's another part before this, but when they go back to the farm.
Yeah, there's a lot of like cutting back and forth.
Yeah.
That happens really quick. I got the order here, but like as far as that opening scene goes, just to go back to it real quick. I think like you said, just to rip the Band-Aid off really fast, like, yeah, Reva's not only alive, but she's here on Tatooine. I think for the pace of this episode, I think that idea worked really well. There's a part of me that kind of felt like a little cheated. Not that I need to see how Reva got off the planet, but like part of me is like, well, how? because
Right.
like she was essentially abandoned by the
Right.
Empire. So like, what ship did she commandeer? Also, how is she standing? Like,
Right.
there were just a lot of questions, and like clearly, like the chase between the Empire and the Path is still happening.
Right.
So I don't know. It doesn't matter really for the story, but like you see it, and since it's the first thing you see in the episode, you're just like, whoa, slow down, Obi Wan. It kind of reminded me actually of. It's not quite as bad, but it kind of reminded me of the Rise of Skywalker. The first like 10 minutes of that movie. Honestly, I don't think a movie has ever given me more whiplash than the Rise of Skywalker. Like first 10 minutes, like we're with Kylo Ren. He's fighting people on Mustafar. The title scroll tells us Palpatine's alive. Mustafar's a forest and no longer a volcanic area, by the way. And now he's flying into a distant part of the galaxy that no one's been to. Palpatine's alive. Palpatine says, I created Snoke, literally and metaphorically. Also, I made all of these Star Destroyers that have Death Star weaponry, and there's hundreds of thousands of them. That's the first 10 minutes. There's so much that happens. It's insane. And the beginning of this, not as bad, not nearly as bad.
Yeah.
Kind of felt like that.
It's funny that you were reminded of that. I was reminded of The Last Jedi when they're just basically in a loop of like, trying to shoot down the ship, but it never happens. Like I thought of that at the beginning just because like, the shots were kind of the same. And then of course, Reva's just on Tatooine already while like we just left them in the air. They're still in the air, but Reva has now somehow gotten away. I'm just like, I mean, okay, fine. Like,
right.
Like
a few shortcuts here and there. I totally right about the slow speed chase, by the way.
Yeah, I was like, oh God, are we about to get like a slow speed chase while she hunts down Luke? Like, what's happening?
And like, why is the Empire's Star Destroyer so bad at shooting? Yeah. Like, it's just as bad as stormtroopers. Why?
Infuriating. But having said that, there's that little. Then they give us the shot where they're on the path. Everyone from the path is on the ship, and Obi Wan basically is trying to convince everyone that he needs to go to save everyone else. And there's a couple cool moments with Leia. I don't know if we have to really dive deep on any of those, but
I would say like the Lola moment is pretty good.
There's a call, and obviously there's a call back to it at the end. So
yeah,
it makes some sense, and it was cute that she left it for him or whatever. That was a nice little touch, But
adorable. I honestly only caught this on my third watch, so this gets brought up really more toward the end. But like so Leia's upset because Obi-Wan, like you said, wants to leave the ship to try and distract, or not so much distract, but like try and take Vader's attention away from the path and try and spare these people. And Leia wants nothing to do with it. She doesn't want Obi-Wan to sacrifice himself. Nobody does, actually. Literally, no one on the ship wants him to do this.
Right.
And everyone's pretty much convinced that this is a bad idea. Roken at one point says, "I feel like you want to do this like too much." Like,
yeah.
And it's true, he does. But while he's saying goodbye to Leia, this is when he gives her a holster.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to realize where the holster came from. Did you catch that?
Yeah. Like at the end of the episode, that's where she gets the holster. That's the holster she's wearing.
Right. But like where Obi-Wan like got the holster from? Did you get like who it belonged to?
No, that I missed that completely.
So it's because he doesn't actually say the name. That I missed it the first two times, and actually like it was to the point where I originally thought, oh, is this Padme's holster, for reasons that happen at the end of the episode. But no, it's Tala's holster. He never actually says her name. He just says, Roken found this. I think she would have wanted you to have it. Yeah, it's Tala's holster. Also, I love that they made a gun joke about not giving a gun to a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Ewan McGregor is so good at like deadpan delivery. Yeah. I'm gonna give you a gun.
I'm gonna give you a gun, Leia. Yeah. He says her name so funny too. Leia. I've been wanting to make fun of the way he says her name the whole time we've been shooting these, and I keep forgetting. We're just gonna do 50 minutes saying it like he says it. I'm sorry. I gotta get back on track. Anyway.
No, that's weird. You're right. Call it out for being weird.
So he gets on the pod or whatever, the little jump ship.
Wait, before he does, sorry, there's one thing I got to bring up.
Okay.
Because like this is definitely something Disney or Dave Filoni or whoever is holding on to for future Star Wars content. So like when Roken is calling out Obi Wan,
Oh yeah.
he's calling him out, and he's like, "Yeah, you definitely need to do this more than you need to save us." And Obi Wan basically says something along the lines of, "Stay alive. Good leaders are hard to come by. These people need you." And of course, Roken says something very felt like foreshadowing. Said, "I'm only just getting started." This will not be the last time we see this character. That will not be the last time in this episode that a new character says something very foreboding like that. That seems to imply that there is a future for them in this franchise. I feel a little mixed about that, by the way. Like, I don't know. I never felt like Roken really made a big impression with me. What about you?
No, I'm the same. Like I think they just did that as like a call in, like just like there's potential for more story here, like because there is such a big gap, like I think they're just kind of planting some seeds to where if they ever decide to they think of a cool idea or a cool story to tell, they can use some of these characters again and there'll be a reason. You know what I mean? Like I don't think there's a guarantee that we're going to get like a continuation path story or even a continuation Obi-Wan story. I mean, I think it's more than likely. I haven't checked reports on if they've actually announced the season 2 yet. I don't think they have. But
you don't think we're gonna get a Roken solo series?
No. But it might be something where like they integrate it into another story they're telling, and then kind of makes some sense why they bring it back because they've already hinted at it. So that was an important thing to mention, though, for sure.
Yeah.
But then he gets on the jump ship, and he goes to the nearby planet, and simultaneously we see Vader talking to Grand Inquisitor, and Grand Inquisitor is trying to tell him that the path is more important. And of course Vader is like, no, Obi-Wan is more important, and announces to go follow Obi-Wan instead, which was obviously going to happen.
I love how bold the Grand Inquisitor is, because like clearly he reports to Vader, right? And like I love that he like basically like in the most respectful way possible tells him this is stupid. This is literally stupid.
Yeah. Well, Vader's always got like a right-hand man or a general or someone telling him he should do the other thing.
Right.
Vader's always just like, no, screw you. I'm going to do this. Like,
I am Darth Vader.
Yeah.
I do what I want. No, it definitely felt like that. And like, honestly, that kind of like Roken, that is the last time we see the Grand Inquisitor in this series.
Yeah.
Which the reveal of his return in the last episode now feels like it was just, since there are no further plans with him in this show, it just feels like, hey, you know how this character is in that other show that you nerds love? Well, we didn't kill him. Just letting you know, like he's still alive. All right, nerds, calm down. That's what it felt like. So I guess while Vader goes to his ship, which by the way, gotta say, he gets into his ship, and I got a little excited since I am one of these nerds, and I thought his ship meant like his TIE fighter, and I was a little disappointed it wasn't the TIE fighter. I was kind of bummed, actually. The Imperial ship is fine. The Imperial shuttle, whatever.
Actually, as you're talking about a ship, I'm realizing that it's the same shuttle that that Obi-Wan gives Luke at the end of the episode, isn't it? I believe
it's similar. I actually, I remember as a kid, I used to think the same thing, because like the shuttle that Luke plays with or has like in his home, I had that as a toy as a kid, and like later that same Imperial shuttle, I think you see it in Return of the Jedi a couple times, and I thought it was the same ship, but it's like just a little, slightly different. Anyway, while this is going on, we cut back to Tatooine. And that's when we get the scene what you were talking about with Luke and Owen. We finally get a line out of Luke, which I it's almost a shame that this kid doesn't get more of an opportunity to act, because like he seems fine. There's nothing really there for him to work with, which whatever, it's fine. The show I don't think suffers for it. But we do get some Owen and Beru action that was not expecting from this show. I feel like this episode alone did a really good job in reconceptualizing like those characters.
We got to see like a protective parent type, like ready to fight basically. Like that was really cool.
Was
awesome. I just loved seeing the farm, like the younger version, I guess, right? Like the inside layout. It was just a cool nostalgia thing to see, like the inside of the house or whatever.
Totally agree.
And then seeing them kind of get prepared and telling Luke that it was Tusken Raiders or whatever that were coming, and not a psychopath.
Way to like perpetuate the stereotype and fear of Tusken Raiders, Owen. Right. But yeah, it's definitely not a psychopath. It's definitely that other thing, the other boogeyman that we got to worry about. Yeah. I love Beru's reaction to. So first of all, just two things about Beru. So Owen tells her that someone is coming for Luke and like she's gonna kill us. And like Beru's first reaction is, well, like, what about Obi Wan? And
yeah,
Owen's like, well, he's gone. And very passive aggressively, she's like, well, whose fault is that? And like that felt like such a great like husband wife like dynamic.
Yeah,
loved that. And then immediately like her response is like grab a gun, and like get ready to fight. I mean, obviously I knew they weren't gonna die, but like part of me was like, they're gonna die.
Yeah. That's what's so weird about a show like this. It's like, because like you don't know how it happens, but you know like what happens because you know where they are in the next like 10 years. Like, so it's such a funny thing to be like, okay, like I can watch this. It's anticipation, and I'm still like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? But like, I'm not like on the edge of my seat, like, oh no, they're gonna die, because I know that they can't.
Right. You're not like worried for them.
Right. So it's just kind of cool, especially with the Raven thing. You're just like, there's no real mention of her. So it was like, in the originals, it can't be that traumatizing whatever's about to happen, because there's no mention of it. Granted, of course, they weren't planning on like a show like this being made when, George Lucas wrote the original, but still. But you knew that the showrunners for this can't possibly have it be like too extreme, because like if it's too extreme, then you bring up the questions of like, well, why doesn't Luke mention this in A New Hope and blah, 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 things like that? Like, because people, us Star Wars fans are insane, and we're like, we need it all to line up, even though we're like adding to the story that we've all gotten to like know already, like year after year. So
that is such a great point, by the way, just about like Star Wars and Star Wars fans. Like I can't think of another franchise that the continuity is as fluid as like Star Wars is, because like George Lucas just like, while he was still working on like the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, he just like changed things like along the way, like the Han shot first thing, like things just change all the time in Star Wars. And it's like, well, is this part of the story? Well, not anymore. Get used to it, nerds. And like, I don't know, like some people like hold Star Wars too religiously, and it's like, this is the way it's always been. It's not like it's not worth getting upset about. Sure, I can see getting annoyed, but I don't know, people take it too seriously.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, let's get to the good stuff here. So we see them setting up to defend the farm, and then it cuts back to the planet where now Vader has landed and Obi-Wan is waiting for him outside. And this first sequence before we cut back to Tatooine is freaking incredible.
I would say everything about this fight from the beginning all the way to the end is just, it's awesome. Honestly, like for any complaint I had about this show, it was worth it just for this confrontation.
Yeah, this was like literally it's Revenge of the Sith battle 2.0, like really just epic. And what's the I love like the couple little lines they said.
Oh, I got you. I wrote them down.
You got the lines, you wrote them down. Okay, good.
I did.
In my brain now, I'm too excited. I can't think of them.
So when Vader lands and he walks out of the Imperial shuttle, and Obi-Wan like squares up with him, he asks him, have you come to destroy me? And Obi Wan just like lights up his lightsaber, which I'm like crazy about the glow of this in the darkness, the way the show has just done work with it, and we'll get into that. And then immediately greets him with that same Revenge of the Sith line that he's had. I will do what I must.
Yeah.
Except I don't know, there's something angrier about it this time. It was a different delivery. There was more pain there, and it was awesome. And then of course Vader responds with "Then you will die," which like both of these lines like are just such great callbacks, used so appropriately.
And dude, the choreography is just fantastic with the lightsaber battle. It's just so.
I like actually how different it felt from Revenge of the Sith, because we had an able-bodied Anakin in that fight, so like the fight is, it's what's the word? There's more agility to it, Right. They're jumping around, they're doing all this crazy stuff, whereas Vader is more rigid and relies more on his environment to fight. So that was a neat distinction between those two. Yeah,
Obi-Wan was a lot more agile, but Vader was just super aggressive with using the environment to his advantage, which is really cool. And then later on, Obi-Wan uses it to his advantage as well, which is badass. But,
we'll get to that.
After this first sequence, we cut back, and that's when Reva is breached the perimeter, I believe, and she is now coming on the inside. And there's a shootout, little gun battle. Nothing really like to stop and talk about until she gets right in front of the door where Luke is,
and Beru gets like she like smacks the hell out of her with her gun. I'll just say that like both of them put up like a surprisingly good fight.
Well, and the thing about that is like they did finally show that like Reva's still injured, and so then I was like, they have to like. Once they did that, I was like, okay, it makes a lot more sense that the fight they're putting up is decent, because she's clearly like in pain,
right?
And she's just like she's pushing through the pain because she wants, revenge for whatever.
Hey, she said justice.
I'm sorry, but like so like they're giving us they're showing that she's in pain, so it makes it a little bit more believable that they're able to put up a fight, because technically if she's at full strength, I don't really think there's like cause for them putting up.
It's no contest, right?
So so they show us that, and it gives us a little bit more insight. And then, but of course, she still breaches the room, and then, makes quick work of Beru, and sees Luke climbing out of the roof there, or this little exit, and takes off running. And then we see her exit the farm as well and chase after him. And then at this moment, we cut back, I believe, right?
Yeah, we cut back to the Vader Obi-Wan fight, and like we were saying before, Vader's really using his environment to fight off Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan is doing really well this time, or much better than when he was fighting before.
Yeah, and as Vader says, he's got his power back.
Yeah, but he still has his weakness.
Yeah. Cool.
That was neat. Vader's just so cool, man. Vader pulls off yet again one of the coolest things that I've gotten to see in Star Wars, which is, we've been saying that he uses his environment, and we got to see that to the extreme, where he puts his hand on the ground, and in like a Last Airbender style move, he literally just destroys the earth beneath Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And just buries him.
Yeah.
By the way, there's a line here where Vader like is standing over him, like in the pile of rocks.
Right.
And he says, did you really think you could destroy me, or you could defeat me? Yeah. And like the way he says it, and like from the angle that it's coming, and then like the rocks like create like a black screen, it just felt like such a game over line. Right. In like any video game boss ever. Like you lost, and then the boss taunts you, and then it fades to black, and then you get the game over screen. And like that's exactly what it felt like. But it's not game over.
Not game over. That was a badass scene though. Not game over. Does it cut back again, or no?
It does. It goes back to, at this point we're back on the farm, and it actually cuts to the only believable chase scene that I've witnessed in this entire show, of handicapped Reva chasing 10-year-old
Yeah.
Luke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is when he's just on the ridge, and she like knocks him off, right?
I think there's like one other cut, but basically like there's nothing that happens that's important in between, I don't think.
Right.
That essentially it leads to that scene where Luke gets knocked out, and this is a good actually place to tie this story up before we get back to the Vader fight. So Luke falls, and she finally gets her chance to slay Luke, to, I guess in her mind, hurt either Anakin or Obi-Wan or both. And she has these visions of herself in Luke's position. She has visions of Vader and Anakin. What were you thinking when you saw that?
I don't know. At this point, like, I was just like, what is the like motive? Like, I just didn't get it. I don't get her, like, why she wants to now kill a youngling like she was almost killed. Like, and I don't think there's a way you can spin it to make me understand it. Like,
I kind of get it.
at this point, when it came, I was like, all right, like, I feel like this part of the character was just unnecessary. Like, she should have just died at the hands of Vader in episode 5, like this whole part is pointless. Like, it, I don't really see, I mean, I kind of get it, obviously, but like, I just don't agree with it. I'm like, I think her character would have been much better suited to just like, I don't need a Reva redemption story. Like, I don't need her. She's already done too much bad shit. Like, she should have just like the Vader battle is the end for her, like that was it. Like, or leave her there and bring her back later for some reason, like, but not like so quickly. And then for this specific thing,
I'm kind of glad they took the route that they did, mostly because I think I'm tired of seeing villains that aren't true villains who just kind of die and don't have to atone for their sins. I'm looking specifically at Ben Solo. I think that was a dumb decision to kill him. So like I get that like her chasing Luke doesn't really like it's a little odd at best, right? The best argument I can come up for that is this is a character that feels like, her power has been completely stripped of her by Anakin, or by Vader rather, right? And so desperately does she want something to, not let down her fellow Padawans, to something to honor them, and like maybe just this one thing, like I can kill his offspring, I could do that, and I'll take back that power in some way, right? It's loosey goosey. It is. I admit that.
But here's the problem.
For sure.
She doesn't know that he's Luke Skywalker.
Right. Because like I don't think she knew that Leia was Anakin's daughter.
She was after Leia because she knew that there was a connection between Leia and Obi-Wan.
Right.
And
that's a good point. That's a good point.
And now she knows that there's a connection between Luke and Obi-Wan. She has no idea that it's Anakin's son.
Yeah, and like the way she
goes,
this actually is starting to change my mind, because like you're right, because the way she goes about it, it's not really to hurt Obi-Wan, it's specifically to hurt Anakin. And she really doesn't have much of a connection as to how those dots work.
Like she's like using her trauma as a youngling as fuel to then kill a youngling who was basically her. Like it just doesn't flow. It doesn't make.
You persuaded me on this.
It's stupid, and it was pointless. Literally, like the only cool part about the whole part of it is to see Owen and what's her name?
Beru.
Beru. Owen and Beru like defend Luke and like get to see that side of them, but like we don't need it. Like we didn't need that.
No,
you know
I never cared about Owen and Beru before this episode.
Literally, like that whole part could have just like not been a part of the episode, and it would have been absolutely fine. And the only reason that they did it was because they wanted to have some kind of like redemption between Owen and Obi-Wan, and they wanted some kind of understanding, and they used part of that, I think, as like motivation for Obi-Wan being like he just needs to be a kid, blah blah blah,
right?
And then like meeting him really quick, and then setting off into the next chapter. Like
But you're right. They
The
could have
whole
done
thing
it.
is not necessary.
They
The
could
whole
have
thing
done
is
it
not necessary.
without any of that, right? Because like the whole idea of Obi-Wan coming to understand Luke can just be a kid has more to do with his journey with Leia and
Correct.
understanding like the
Exactly.
responsibilities that
Exactly.
Leia has, right?
Yeah. They literally did not need it. I would have been much happier if this episode was 35 minutes long without that. Because it just felt like it's just like this is BS. Like this is just like too much. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like
we'll get to we're gonna get back to the end of this episode and the end of the fight in a second here, but like one more note on that. You know, I was reading recently that the idea for this story was originally supposed to be a movie, not a 6-episode series. So when I think about it like that, there are certain parts of the series where that logic starts to make sense to me, where it feels like places are being elongated unnaturally.
yeah.
Because like if you recall, like you and I have talked about how inconsistent this show can be at times. Like at times, like really deliver you some like really great stuff, and then other times just like stuff that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
You know, I think about like episodes like 1 and 2, like where we have those like two dumb chase scenes of Leia that don't make any sense. There are so many moments with Reva that don't make any sense. So I wonder if this dramatic tension that's happening with Reva in this situation on the farm, like I wonder if that was padding. It feels like padding to elongate this episode, because you're right, like truly like the only thing that comes from this is Reva is on some kind of redemption arc, and Star Wars will use her however it sees fit now for the future.
But it's just gonna piss everyone off because
when she returns,
her character, and I was her biggest defender for the first 4 episodes, and then like or 3 episodes, and then you know it was like okay about the 4th one, and then the 5th one I was like, all right, this is great, end her character here. It's like it's just you know I hate to say it, but Disney's trying to not kill as many people on screen.
Oh my god, yeah,
so,
it just won't kill.
It's just like come on, like.
But it killed Tala, which was like this was a character I actually enjoyed.
Yeah, like why are you like?
Which maybe that's why she didn't overstay her welcome.
Right, like they're just like I don't know. I think they missed the boat on that. But now that we've gotten that out of the way, we can go back. We can go back to the planet where Darth and Obi-Wan are fighting. That scene comes back with we see Obi-Wan underneath the rocks using the Force to hold up the rocks, and then he's kind of struggling internally to hold them up, and then he has a vision of Luke and Leia, which I thought was really cool.
And that was super cool, especially because there's a line earlier in the episode that really links up with him being able to like use those memories to like lift the rocks when he's trying to convince everyone on the Path ship to like let him go. He says something along the lines of, "You spent so many years protecting the Jedi. Please, like, let me repay the favor. You are the future. That's what matters." And of course, like in this moment where he is, you know, on the brink of dying, what he thinks of are the two people in the galaxy who are going to have the most influence in the next like 10 to 15 years.
Right.
They're the future. They're what matters. And that's awesome. That's what gives him the strength to like lift the rock and in a very Assassin's Creed stealthy move, sneak up behind Vader.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah.
And then we get like the last half of the battle, which is just absolutely epic. Like Obi-Wan basically owns him in this part, right? Like lifts all the rocks and just like fires them at him and destroys his regulator and all that. Like, and then he smashes his helmet, and this is like the coolest part of the episode. Like,
I hope you know this is the scene I geeked out hardest on.
Like, this is the only scene that matters in the whole episode. It's so cool. Like, we get half Darth, half Anakin, and not only do we get the face, but we get the vocals. We get like they gelled the vocals for us. Like, we got half of Jones, we got half of Christensen. Like, just like that was so cool. That was so cool. And then we just literally get like a conversation. Like, they like talked. You know, Obi-Wan like horrified. Like, the expression on his face is he's just horrified at what he's become, what Anakin's become, and he's sad and he's apologetic. And then you get Darth Vader who says, this isn't your fault. Or like, you didn't kill Anakin, I did. Like, I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. I don't even know what else to say. It's just like the perfect scene.
It really was. So I finally did my homework for this series because I was really curious about who was directing the Obi Wan series, and it is a director by the name of Deborah Chow. This is the biggest thing that she's ever done, it would seem, but she's had like quite a career before this, like directing like individual like episodes of different notable series, like Mr. Robot, Better Call Saul. She did 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. Yeah, so like she's had like a really good career before this. And again, like, this show's not perfect. As we said, felt like maybe it was a little too long. Maybe that's because it should have been a movie. But then you get scenes like this that are brilliant. I love this scene. Like you said, I'm a sucker for 2 things. One, I love when you can do something really creative with sound, and hearing Anakin and Vader's voice switch in mid-sentence was super creepy and really like drives home the point of how Anakin is gone.
All right.
The other thing that I will always geek out over, and you know this, Nick, I'm a sucker for color. If you can use color to help tell a story or help shape a scene, I'm going to lose my shit over it every time. So like Deborah Chow throughout this entire series did a great job or just a really imaginative job in using lightsaber glow to paint a scene or create like surprise or build tension throughout this entire series. Say what you will about it, but like that was consistent.
Super good.
This was probably the best use of it, is this conversation. I wrote down a couple of lines here, which I know you're aware of them as someone who also watched this episode a few times. I'm only going to repeat part of this conversation just to appreciate the use of color here. Because like, again, I can't get over it. So after Obi-Wan strikes the mask and the mask is partially off, Obi-Wan is cast in the glow of his blue lightsaber, right? Anakin, we see him, and he's actually painted in half red, half blue, which is super cool. And this is the line where he says, "I am what remains," and that's where we get this blue and red, which is brilliant considering we know Vader is not totally, or Anakin's not totally dead, because Luke comes to find out there's still good in my father, right?
Right.
So like we have that representation of red and blue, which is awesome. It cuts to Obi-Wan. Suddenly Obi-Wan is cast in like, he's cast in mostly blue, but there's like a little bit of red in him. I'm not really sure what they're trying to signify there, but this is the line where he says, "I'm sorry." And like, he's filled with like this regret that might be like, I don't know, some emotional attachment, that which a Jedi's not supposed to have, right? Maybe that's what that is.
Right. But then he just spent so much time with Leia too, who is his daughter. So there's something there. The first time, this didn't happen the second time I watched it. But the first time I watched it, I thought he was going to tell Darth Vader that he had kids.
Oh, yeah.
In Empire Strikes Back, Vader tells Luke that he's his father.
Right.
We never know how long he's known.
Right. There are comics that explore that, but you're right. That there's never like the realization, right? We never get that on screen.
And because of that, I was like, wait, is this how I was like, there's no way. And then they didn't, obviously. And the second time I watched the scene, I didn't have the same thought. So it might have just been me in that moment for whatever reason. But I for a split second, I was like, wait, is he about to tell him, like, you have kids, Anakin, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was... anyway, sorry. But
no, you're good.
Continue what you're saying.
You're good. So as you pointed out, when it cuts back to Anakin and Anakin says, "I'm not your failure, Obi-Wan," you pointed out that the first part of that sentence, "I'm not your failure," is spoken as Anakin, but then the last part, as he says Obi-Wan, it transfers into Vader's voice. We have Anakin saying, "You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker," and as he says that, he's full blue. He is casting the complete bluish glow of Obi-Wan's lightsaber. And he says, of course, I did. Which like that felt like such I'm your father line, like like the way it's delivered, super awesome. And as he says that, it transitions to hard red in the glow of Vader's lightsaber, and we go back to Obi-Wan, and he says Obi-Wan suddenly cast in the glow of all red, and he says, of course, then my friend is truly dead, and it softens and it becomes all blue over Obi-Wan, and of course he takes his lightsaber, he sheathes it, and then leaves.
Yeah, well, before he leaves, he says, "Goodbye, Darth."
That's right. Oh, that's right. That's right. I loved that. Oh,
so for acknowledging fully that he is lost, basically, which is awesome. And then we get Darth, yelling after him. We cut back to Reva. This is when we get back to Reva and Luke for a split second, and then that's when Obi-Wan realizes that Luke's in trouble. And so this gets more ridiculous here too, and this is another reason why it's like,
I thought he was going to get there in time to stop her. Right. I was like, please don't do this.
Yeah, well, so this is why this whole thing is just like, come on, like. But real quick before we rip that apart, when he says Luke, because he says Luke to himself, like in a whisper, I swear to God, they used Alec Guinness's voice for that scene. It sounded like him to me in that moment, which I thought was really cool. I don't know if that was done on purpose. Maybe it was just my thoughts watching it. I don't know if anyone else has that thought, but that's what I thought of. But yeah, so then all of a sudden it's like, wait, like how the heck is he going to make it there in time? I was like, this is terrible. If like he can't save him, like there's no way, and granted, like to their credit, they didn't have him save him, which was good.
Thank you.
But he still made it there
so fast
comparatively, especially because honestly, like the timeline of like the whole Vader and Obi-Wan thing and the timeline of the whole Reva and Luke thing is so discombobulated. Like,
also, wasn't he in an escape pod? Like, does it even have hyperdrive?
Right. Well, that's the other thing too. Like this jump, I guess it's more of like, what was it called? Like a jump. No, I think it was called like a jump ship. So I think it.
So it had hyperdrive capabilities.
I mean, obviously it has.
Yeah, obviously it did. Oh, maybe Obi-Wan could just teleport the same way Reva can. I don't know.
This is again why it just didn't work. Like, and because he didn't do anything, they didn't need him to get there that fast, right? They could have like finished off her scene and then shot to Obi-Wan being like, oh shoot, I need to go to Luke, or maybe he was coming anyway, but they wanted to make the connection that Obi-Wan like can feel like when Luke's in trouble, and that's why they did it. But like it just calls back to the whole like the whole Reva scenes, the whole Reva part of this episode can just be cut. It's just pointless, like not needed at all. There's no reason for it.
It's a shame because like I truly do like the concept of Reva. I like that she's like a leftover splinter in Anakin's like war, right? And that it's something that could come back to like bite him. It's just not used very effectively,
Plus, like, we know it doesn't come back to bite him. So,
right. There's that too.
So, like, why bother? Like, at this point, like, why bother?
Right. Why not just focus on Obi-Wan and Vader?
They're just like, it almost felt like they just wanted to keep one extra character alive in case there's a continuation of the story and they need, like, a person that, like, maybe, like, could be interesting character-wise. But, like, most of the fans have been annoyed with her anyway.
Oh yeah, if she's anything like what happened with Rose, we will never see Reva again.
Right. It's just like, So regardless, but that happens. He goes back. Obviously, we know what happens with Reva, the whole redemption story thing, and she doesn't kill Luke, and then we get we do get a nice moment between Obi-Wan and Reva. Like I thought that was cool. What he says to her about it's her decision now. Like that was a nice scene. Like if because we have to acknowledge all the things that happened. That was a nice scene between them.
So for the record, you're right. Like that is a nice scene, and I felt like in him talking to her about that, you actually get some insight as to like why Obi-Wan spares Vader and doesn't kill him. She says something along the lines of like, I failed them. I failed the younglings. And Obi-Wan responds by saying, you didn't fail them. By showing mercy, you've given them peace. You honor them. And I felt like that was like exactly why he doesn't kill Vader, right? By showing Vader mercy, he honors the memory of Anakin, right? Of the man who was his brother. So like I appreciated that part of that scene.
Yeah.
Other than that, yeah, it's a little wonky. So we actually cut to Mustafar, and we're in Vader's castle, and surprise, surprise, Emperor Palpatine makes a cameo appearance.
Yeah, and this is before we even talk about that, because the next scene is Leia.
After that it's Leia, yeah.
And then he goes back to Tatooine, and then he leaves.
Right.
It's such a weird, like,
I agree. That's a bad cut. Like that
bad
doesn't
order
really
of
make
business. Like,
well, maybe it's not a bad cut because like I guess like his ship is the fastest ship in the galaxy and is just capable of going anywhere in the blink of an eye. So it's like, well, what? It's just a hop, skip, and jump, whatever.
Yeah, it's just like I mean, I understand they wanted to close up all the loose ends, and they wanted to obviously end with the Qui-Gon Jinn thing.
Right.
So I get it, but it's just like, fuck.
Well, it doesn't make sense. No, I agree. Also, what do you do with the ship afterward? Like,
yeah. I just dropped an F-bomb. You don't have to edit that out.
Oh, we've done it. We've done it a few times.
Apologies. Anyway, so yeah, they cut. Now we see Vader, and I thought it was a little interesting that they didn't show him like being rehabilitated.
I guess we had seen it once, right?
But we had seen it, and he didn't get any limbs chopped off this time. He just like some damage to his suit. So I guess I get it. And then it was cool. We finally get to see Palpatine.
And not like decrepit, weird Palpatine from the sequel trilogy. It was, old school Palps.
Yeah,
good to see old school Palps is doing all right.
And that's what it felt like to me. It was more like, you have to forget about him now. Like you have bigger fish to fry, like bigger plans. Which would make sense because I if they are going to continue Obi-Wan's story, I think it's going to be separate from Darth Vader at this point.
Yeah, agreed.
Based on like how everything's kind of ended, right? Like, especially with the Palpatine thing, it's like, okay, now it's time to focus. Like, let him come to you the next time, whenever that happens. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if like the next part of the Obi-Wan Vader story is A New Hope, right? So like that's it for us with those two.
I agree. The story is done,
and I think it should be. Like, I think it was a great like ending between those two. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I honestly I don't want any more at this point, right? Between those two, like it feels complete now.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything left to say about Obi-Wan and Vader.
I think so too, and I like that. I think it should be.
Yeah.
So, next scene, they cut to Leia, which was really cool. Like, I think that whole scene was awesome. I love that whole part.
This is probably my second favorite scene.
Dressing like the Leia we know, and then
not just like the Leia we know. She's dressed almost exactly like Padme from Episode 2.
Oh, that's correct. Yeah.
I loved that. Also,
sorry, I forget about Attack of the Clones. It doesn't exist in my brain. I apologize.
No, it's all right. That's a common syndrome of growing up in the 90s. I'm a big Padme fan. So anytime the show acknowledges Padme as a character, I get excited. Which we got 2 references to Padme. I mean, granted, they were like pretty close apart, right? First the costume, and we get Bria Organa, Leia's stepmom, who comes in and just, I love her reaction to the holster. It's so wholesome.
Right.
Just so supportive. What a great family.
Yeah. No, that was great. Well, I think the reason that she was so supportive and didn't even decided to be supportive is because she knew who was coming to visit.
Right.
It was like, oh, actually, this is perfect who you're about to see, right? It's not a cousin this time, like, but she kept it from Leia as a surprise. And I think it was a cool moment between her and her and Senator Organa, like for the where what does she say? She's like, you wanted me to lead or whatever, this is my way or something, you know, and she's like, I want to change some things, and he was like, let's change them together. Like, what the fuck? He's just like the coolest dad. Like, this is the best dad, dude.
Jimmy Schmitz he has so little, he gets so little screen time in anything that he's been part of in Star Wars, and like he just makes the most of it every time. That scene so wholesome.
He's the absolute best. Yeah.
Yes.
That was so cool. And then I love, you know, obviously the Obi-Wan's ship lands and it opens, and we see him first, and we see Leia kind of get an expression on her face, and we're like, oh, she's so excited. And then she sees Lola, and that's what she's the most excited about. I was just like, this is great.
Such a kid reaction.
Yeah. And Obi-Wan's, you know, like a champ. He's just like, I couldn't separate a child from her joy. And then there's a cool moment with, you know, the Organas or whatever. But the real thing to talk about is the moment between Obi-Wan and Leia, where he for the first time in what seems like 10 years is remembering her parents in like, you know, a positive light, like they were, you know, like he remembers them, and that was a really cool little moment.
That was, yeah. I wrote down what he said. It was, she is wise and kind-hearted, like you are wise and kind-hearted like your mother. You are passionate and fearless like your father.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And like I love that, like this is actually a great transition to how he comes to think about Anakin. Because the way he describes Anakin to Leia is a very similar way that he will eventually describe Luke's father to Luke, you know, as this person that he once knew who is dead now. Also, there's a great moment between Ian McGregor and, I finally learned her name, Vivian Lyra Blair is the young actress who plays Leia. There's this wonderful moment between the two where Obi-Wan asks, well, what do you think I should do now? And and Blair says, I think you should sleep. And the reaction is so organic. I think that was, I don't think that was written. I think that was improvised. I think she just said that.
That's hilarious.
Based on how he like just reacts to her and like the way the editing works. Like I don't think that was scripted at all. If it was, great delivery from a little child, like just 10 out of 10.
God, I hope it wasn't. I hope we find out one day that it wasn't scripted. That'd be fantastic.
She seems like she is a like not just a talented actor, but like also a lot of fun to work with on stage. Like Ewan McGregor seems like he's having fun with her, you know?
Yeah.
I could see it. I could definitely see it. So yeah, we get our tearful goodbye. That kind of reminded me a little bit of Anakin saying bye to his mom. Maybe in someday.
I'm so glad that we're mentioning this goodbye part, because I really wanted to mention this.
Sure.
How cool is it? Like Leia's like, will I ever see you again? And he says, if you ever need help from an old man, right? If you ever need help from an old man, you know how to call me, or an old friend, you know how to call me, right?
Oh, you're right. It was an old man. Yeah.
An old man. And I was like, like that's a nice, like a nice little, like, just a nice little Easter egg kind of thing.
Nice little cherry on top.
Nice little cool thing to mention. Like, and it kind of implies that like we might not get a continuation. Like it really honestly, it implies that like the next time Leia needs Obi-Wan is in A New Hope.
Agreed.
Which would make a lot of sense why like there can't be too much more interaction between them, because Leia in A New Hope doesn't really acknowledge Obi-Wan very much, right?
Right.
And like she's very young here, so like the theoretical thought process is she was so young here that she remembers Obi-Wan being very nice and helpful, but she's not like heartbroken about
his death
like Luke is, because Luke, you know, gets much closer to him later,
more recently when
that all happens. So like they still got to kind of keep the Star Wars lore intact a little bit, and they don't want to completely like throw it out the window by like, oh, now Obi-Wan just is friends with Leia like for years in between, and then just makes no sense that she's like doesn't care that he's dead, you know, that kind of thing. Like then we go back
to Tatooine for some reason
for the end of the episode finally. And this is when he's packing up his things. He's clearly about to go on a journey. He grabs the ship that he originally wanted to give Luke, and he goes to see Owen. And Owen, of course, is his grumpy self at first. but then Obi-Wan tells him that he's right, and that he just needs to let Luke be a kid, and that Owen and his wife are good enough and perfect guardians, and they don't need Obi-Wan anymore. And then Obi-Wan walks away, and Owen gives us this little, like, he's thinking, and then he realizes, he's like, okay, like, hey Ben, you want to meet him? And obviously Ben's very excited, and we get what I think should have been the last line of the whole series. We get a quick stare down, and then we get a good old fashioned hello there.
He said it. He said it.
He says hello
there,
which is so great. I laughed even the second time. I laughed again, even though I knew it was coming. I couldn't help it. It was so good.
I use that
coming all the time. Like, totally, it's just so perfect, dude.
It totally took me by surprise when he said it. It's like, ah!
Yeah. I laugh. I'm still laughing about it. It was so great. And that's the only thing. That's what we get, basically. And then after that, we see him get on where he's riding away, and then we kind of see a mirage kind of start to form, and then we get the worst part of the whole thing, which is the Qui-Gon Jinn.
Oh, come on. All right, look, I won't take this disrespect, because, like, I get it. I get you don't like Qui-Gon. For anyone who listens to this, Nick doesn't like Qui-Gon. Never has. But, like, come on. At least for, like, the way it's done and the emotional implications for Obi-Wan, come on. You got to admit, it was pretty cool.
I'm just giving it a hard time, but it made sense. We've been waiting for it the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, hey, they got Liam Neeson to reprise his role. I mean,
yeah, he came back. I mean, it was just hilarious. for 20 seconds, but hey.
Yeah, but it was cool for sure. But it kind of gives you the hope that, like, hey, there might be more of a story to tell, right? Like, we might not be done completely with this part. And yeah, that's it. That's how it ends.
That's how it closes. One final note on that, the final shot. As I mentioned earlier, I do really like how Deborah Chow plays with color in this episode, and we get like one final reference to our struggle of red and blue in the final shot of the episode. And it only caught my eye because, like, I'm also a sucker for, like, shots that have, like, perfect symmetry to them. And Obi-Wan's walking into this, like, canyon ravine, and the way the shot is set up, it's like half sky. The background is the canyon ravine, and then the foreground is the desert. And it looks like it's this great perspective shot. If you look at the west side of the shot, the morning sun is coming out, and the hard left part of this canyon shot is completely cast in orange and red. And then the hard right shot is the blue that, like, still hasn't met with the morning sun at this moment. And the way it's, like, set up, like, down the middle, that Obi-Wan is, like, traveling this path, like, well, this was clearly done intentional. And we still have this, like, red and blue as, like, Obi-Wan passes into the middle. Not sure what they're trying to imply there, but, like, I really appreciated that final aesthetic. I thought that was really, really cool. Nice. But yeah, with that, we hit the end of this series. Love it or hate it, it exists now. It's part of Star Wars canon.
Yeah.
I think for me, just, like, I do want to, like, grade this episode and then the series individually, and I want to get your take on that. Before I ask you, though, when I think about, like, what this series is and, like, the things that I think really worked, I think we both agree Reva could have used some work or just not been part of it at all. And because, like, I think all the best parts of the show are either Obi-Wan and Leia or Obi-Wan and Vader.
Right.
And I didn't really need anything else. Everything else was like, even the path. Like, I mean, the path is interesting to help expand the universe, but, like, I don't know, I didn't need it. Yeah. One thing that I liked what this show was implying, but I think this is something that would have worked in a movie, maybe not a show, is the movie really seems to play with identity a lot. Or excuse me, the show seems to play with identity a lot. Because when this show starts, Obi-Wan is not Obi-Wan. He is Ben Kenobi, right? He's the shadow of himself. And
he comes to find out Anakin is alive, but only for this show to end and him to discover, actually, no, Anakin is dead.
Right.
But he may have played a role, but he's not solely responsible for it. Vader killed him, and in fact, Vader's proud of it. So I want to dub that first meeting, that first fight that they have. It's not the first Obi-Wan Darth Vader fight. It's Vader versus Ben. That's that first fight because Obi-Wan hasn't come back yet, right?
Right.
Obi-Wan comes back later, and that's when we get our Obi-Wan Darth Vader fight. I like that they messed with that. I think they kind of missed the ballpark with it a little bit. I guess when I say that, I just wish they'd explored it just a little bit further. But they decided to give us a Reva backstory instead. So
yeah. So what's your episode rating?
So my episode rating, you were right. I may have graded too high last time. But yeah, definitely lower than last time. So my score for episode 5 was 4.7. My score this time is going to be probably a 3.9. It's got to have the automatic 2 for Vader being scary, but there's just some weird, dumb decisions in this episode that I can't look past. What about you?
So last episode, I gave it a 4.25, I believe, 4.2.
Yeah.
I was gonna go. I was between 3.9 and 4.1 for this one, but I'm just gonna go 4. Keep it in the middle.
Okay, we're not too far off from each other then.
Yeah, so 4. I think this was the second best episode of the whole thing. My favorite episode was 5 for sure. And we're running short on time. We've got 2 minutes. So what's your overall score for the series?
So out of 10. So super fun.
We're doing out of 10? Okay.
Oh shit, yeah, you're right. I mean, shoot. Yeah, no, out of 5, you're right. I don't know what I'm thinking. I think out of 5, I gotta give it honestly, maybe a 3.5. I feel like is fair. There's a lot that I like. There's a lot more that I think was kind of useless. What about you?
It's tough. I think yours is a little low. I thought yours would be higher. I thought you'd like it more than me. So
I think I like the ending more than you.
Yeah, that's true. No, I was gonna give it I was thinking honestly 4.1.
Wow, we are radically different on that.
Yeah, I thought overall it was really awesome. They gave us what we really wanted for the most part, and it was really just Reva's character that really we could have done without.
That's the problem, right? We have so much Reva.
I don't even think it was completely I really just think they just needed to leave her in episode 5. So that was my only thing really. But overall, awesome. And there we go.
Well, I guess that will do it for us. Really, really fun experience just all the way through. And we'll be back. We'll do this again for another show in the future. But for now, this was May the Force be, or excuse me, May the review be with you with Nick and Joe. We'll see you again real soon. May the review be with you.